Hey, 20-1s. In this lesson, what we're going to look at is completing the square algebraically. If you watched the first video, I showed you what this would look like visually, but then at the end I said, okay, it starts to get really difficult when our numbers start to get a little more difficult or we start throwing negatives around. It's hard to think of areas with negatives, right? So how do we do this algebraically? Okay, again, what I want you to think about when we were doing it visually was this. We looked at really these two terms here, and we said this. We made the square, and we said, okay, it has to be x squared here, which means this is x and this is x. And then we took this middle term here, and we split it up into two. So we split the middle term by two. So each side length would be x minus 2, x minus 2. And then what we did was, then we said negative 2 times negative 2. This has to be 4 here. And then we balanced it. Well, guess what? When we did the visual right there, we just talked about how we're going to do it algebraically. Ready? Here we go. Here's how we do this algebraically. I'm going to throw some parentheses around these two. I'm going to split negative 4x into 2, which we did here visually, but then what we needed was this 4. So where does this 4 come from? Where are we going to put it, I should say? Well, here's what we do. We take the middle term, and divide it by 2. That's negative 2. Then we square it. That's 4. Exactly like we have right here in our visual, plus 4. But now, my friends, same as we did in the other video, now we have to balance. We can't just add in 4. So to balance, we're going to subtract 4. And now all we do is simplify. So the middle term here, or this term here, I don't know if it's the middle term, but this term here ends up being a perfect square trinomial, x minus 2 squared plus 3. So algebraically, again, what did we just do? We took our middle term, we divided it by 2. That's the same as what we did over here. We divided it by 2, and then we squared it. That's the same as what we did right here. So really, the algebraic is the same as the visual. We're just not going to draw the picture every single time. So again, steps, middle term, divided by 2, square this number, balance. That's it. There's your steps for completing the square. Let's do a few more. Okay, these can get more difficult, and that's where I said the visualization starts to fall apart a bit. So let's complete the square for this one, all algebraically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw parentheses around the first two terms like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the middle term. I'm going to divide it by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then I'm going to square that. That's 1. So the plus 1 goes right there. And then I added in 1. So I'm going to balance it by subtracting 1. And this is x plus 1 squared. That's a perfect square trinomial, minus 4. There it is, friends. That's how you complete the square without drawing a pretty picture. The pictures are pretty, so draw it anyway. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, this one's a little bit more complicated because there's that negative x squared there. So what are we going to do to combat that? Well, I don't like negative x squared. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out a negative 1. So I'm going to put my parentheses around the first two terms, like I did in the last couple. But now I'm going to factor out a negative 1, which makes it x squared minus 6x plus 4. And now let's complete the square algebraically. So we'll take the middle term, divide it by 2, negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. So we put that 9 here, so plus 9. Okay, but now, friends, here's something really, really important when we go to balance. We didn't really just add in 9. What we really added in is -1 times +9. We really added in -9. So to balance, we're going to then put a plus 9. Again, why is it a plus 9? Because we didn't add in just 9. We added in -1 times 9. So we really added in -9. So when we balance, we have to keep an eye out for whatever we factored out at the beginning. And so now this is x minus 3 squared plus 13, just like that. Again, friends, what I want you to think is we can check all of our work by graphing. And if our two graphs are the same, we've done it correctly. Okay, last one. So this one here, again, I notice right off the bat that it's not just x squared, it's 2x squared. So to fix that, I'm going to factor out a 2, just like that. Perfect. Middle term divided by 2 is -4. -4 squared is 16. So when we balance here, again, we're going to be careful. This is positive 16, but I didn't just add in 16. I added in 2 times 16, which is 32. So I'm going to balance by subtracting 32. So I've always got to keep an eye out for what I've factored out at the beginning. Perfect square trinomial, so x minus 4 squared minus 8. And my friends, there it is. Now we're in vertex form. And now that we're in vertex form, look at all the things you can tell me. Most importantly, you can tell me the vertex is at 4, -8. You can tell me this graph is opening up. If I go back and look at the standard form for a second, that 24 right there is the y-intercept. Geez, friends, we know pretty much everything about this graph, except we don't know the x-intercepts. So guess what's coming in some lessons coming up? How do we find those x-intercepts? There you go, friends. There's how you complete the square algebraically.